From west to east and kingdom to kingdom, you're listening to and watching the Diz Unplugged Connecting with Walt podcast. Connecting with Walt is brought to you by Dreams Unlimited Travel, experts at helping you plan the perfect Disney vacation. Visit them on the web at dreamsunlimitedtravel.com. Hello, and welcome to episode 146 of the Diz Unplugged Connecting with Walt podcast. I am your host and Diz historian, Michael Bowling, and I am joined by my co-host, producer, and good friend, Craig Williams. Craig, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you, Michael?
I'm doing well, and I must say you're looking good.
I feel like I'm looking good right now. I might decide halfway through this to go and do the outfit change.
Yeah, the wardrobe change, like the Academy Awards, or they change at every commercial.
Exactly. Yeah, I feel like it's for maybe this intro portion, I will kind of stick towards this look that I'm currently rocking, and then once we get into the real meat and potatoes, the question and answering, then I'm going to make sure that I have a nice outfit change for that.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe I'll change too, but it'll be something subtle. We'll see if the listeners or the viewers can figure it out. And yes, if you're listening to the audio portion of this podcast, we are actually videoing this segment. Craig, do you want to talk a little about why we're doing that?
Well, we're doing it because one of the things that has been great to come out of this entire kind of stay-at-home procedures that we've all been following is that we've really tried to make strides in order to be able to do all of our shows on the Diz Unplugged that we can via video. And luckily enough, the program that we're using to do it all utilizes Skype. And Michael and I have been using Skype to do Connecting with Walt for years, and we record our own audio separately. I record the conversation, so I know how to sync it up, and then I do all the post-production on it, and that's just how we've been doing it. So now that we have this video program that records our Skype calls and such, I figured, you know what? Why not try this with Connecting with Walt? Where is the harm in bringing Connecting with Walt to video? That being said, this is not an every week type of thing. You watch our show, listen to our shows, sorry. You know that sometimes our shows can get very, very long, and it would be nearly impossible. But even beyond that, we're a history podcast, and a lot of times the subjects we're talking about in terms of video, we need the benefit of having photos and other visuals to really make it interesting. Yeah, you could just watch us read and kind of have our little back and forth, but it's not as interesting. So we're not going to do it every week, but we figured for something like this episode, a question and answer, it's perfect for video because we don't need visuals with it anyways. We don't have anything to present. I mean, I'm sure we could find one or two things here and there, but in the long run, in the grand scheme of things, these question and answers are really a conversation back and forth between Michael and I. So we're just inviting you into the conversation. And I'm just going to get it out of we made all the jokes at the beginning, but our recording got screwed up for the intro. And so that's why the change of clothes. I did not notice it until the day before our release. And so we're doing this kind of last second, but it's still very important to us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we hope you enjoy it, this little experiment of ours. And we will do it on, a spattering of future episodes if this works out. But like Craig said, it won't be every week and all that. So, but this is fun. So anyway, we hope you enjoy it. So, a few things that have happened. Of course, May the 4th, at the beginning of the week, I'm sorry.
Sorry, no, I was just going to say I'm Star Wars'd out. I got way too much Star Wars, and I think the kicker for me was watching the holiday special. Then I knew, I was like, okay.
Oh yeah, too much Star Wars. I ended up watching Star Trek. That I've been binge watching the original series, but Disney Plus launched Disney Gallery Star Wars: The Mandalorian, and I did watch that, and I enjoyed it. I like the behind the scenes things and hearing how things were, made and all that. This didn't go into a lot of detail about what the directors do and how they did it and stuff like that. This was more like meet the directors.
Exactly. It was I don't want to call it a fluff piece in terms of like a Blu-ray or DVD special feature. It definitely was interesting because they went in depth on the people that made The Mandalorian actually come to life, and they deserved it because the series was fantastic. They deserve all the credit. My only issue with it is that it was more like meet Dave Filoni and Taika Waititi, and then we'll briefly mention the rest of them and make sure that you know that they worked on it. But Dave Filoni was the mastermind of all these Star Wars series and is definitely holding the torch as it moves forward. And Taika Waititi is also the future, which after they debuted that episode, then it wasn't too long after that they announced that Taika was officially confirmed to be directing a new Star Wars movie. So it just, it all feels like it was just worked out perfectly there.
It did. It was that Disney magic. But yeah, I agree with you. I loved hearing Dave Filoni's, story as to how he got the job and how he thought it was a prank when he got the call. But I love his enthusiasm. I do think the one director that got short shrift, I guess, was Bryce Dallas Howard. They didn't go a lot into what she did. And I know a lot of people, they enjoyed what she directed. They enjoyed her episodes a lot because they felt there was a lot of character development and human interaction in her episodes. And so I was a little surprised she didn't get as much airtime.
Yeah, I thought, again, going back to what I just said there, obviously Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni and Taika are important, but I thought the other three just didn't really get enough. And like Bryce Dallas, they gave her a little bit of her due, but like even when they opened it up so that she could direct. Of course, her father has been directing for years and she's been around him. And even like they synced it all up together. She directed the episode that was, in the same vein as Seventh Samurai, a Bug's Life, whatever version of that story that you want to consider it. They gave that one to her, which ended up being strange because she flew to Tokyo one time with Ron Howard, and did she say George Lucas too? And they had dinner with Kurosawa? Well,
yeah, I think, she said that her father had to go to Japan to meet with George Lucas and Kurosawa, and she was like 6 years old or something. And I guess, he felt he wasn't going to leave her all the time with her mother because, there's boys too, I guess. And they, he felt he'd done that too much because of his job. So he thought he'd take her with him. And she apparently fell asleep like on his shoulder or chest at this dinner with George Lucas and Kurosawa. And looking back, I'm sure she regrets it, but I don't know how much a 6-year-old would take in a whole lot of that conversation.
Oh yeah. I've loved movies all my life and really fell in love with them when I was a teenager. And I don't even think at a teenager I would have appreciated that as much as I would as a now 33-year-old man who's seen more of his movies and realized how much of a master he is and how very few people in the United States has seen his work. But regardless, yeah, I wish we got more with the directors. I know we're lucky we're getting this series at all, but it's whetting my appetite for more of that behind the scenes features on Disney Plus. That is the one of the aspects besides some of the shows and stuff that are missing. It's that other component of Disney Plus that I feel like could really take it to the next level.
Yeah, and how hard can it be to put those things together? You think they could do more of that whilst the studios can't produce anything? So...
Well, yeah, and that's and part of it. It's that why not do it right now? But going back with that, they make these for DVDs and Blu-rays and such. So just find some storage space to throw them up there as well too, and take the past ones from the movies that are already out there and get them up online too. So for the people who maybe don't buy them and don't really know what it is about special features that are so interesting to watch. Maybe this opens their minds up and they want to continue doing that in the future because there's some great information out there in those.
All right. Well, another thing that I've started watching on Disney Plus, another series, I haven't gotten through the whole thing yet, is Prop Culture. And I found it very entertaining. There's some episodes are stronger than others, but, I think everybody loved the Mary Poppins one. And they opened up strong with that. And then others, I've enjoyed them. So have you watched this?
I have watched it, and I watched it all because I wasn't enthralled with it. I loved the Mary Poppins episode, and it reminded me of the 2013 D23 Expo when we got to see a lot of the Mary Poppins props in the Disney Archives exhibit. But then beyond that, I don't think I was really engaged again with another episode until maybe Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. And even that, that got me because Rick Moranis, I love Rick Moranis. He is one of my favorite actors. And of course I had the nostalgia driven feelings during the Muppet movie episode, and because my love of the Muppets, I had to enjoy that, and as well as Roger Rabbit. But the Tron episode and Nightmare Before Christmas and Narnia, as much as I do enjoy all of those movies, I just didn't find them as interesting, particularly with Tron and Nightmare, because with Tron, they said it multiple times, there's barely anything left in existence. Yeah. And that's not interesting. And with Nightmare Before Christmas, they're pulling out all of the figures that they used in the stop motion animation. And I guess because I've seen a lot, not necessarily with Nightmare Before Christmas, but with Leica movies and other stuff that Disney has done, I've seen these characters up close before. There's something that wasn't as engaging about seeing them on the screen like some of the other props. The stories were great, but just you also want the wow of the props. Wow, they reunited this costume with that actor. And that's the stuff that I watched the show for ultimately. But I also thought the host was a little bit pretentious, maybe.
I think I get the impression he's a bit inexperienced as a host in front of a camera. I might be wrong, but he didn't seem totally comfortable and seemed forced. But but he apparently has a lot of things in his collection.
I will say that one of my favorite parts of it is actually the intro where they go through his collection, and I'm looking at the props from Killer Clowns from Outer Space and other non-Disney properties. And I'm like, can we go into your closet and see all this stuff? I want to know what that is. Yeah, really. So, but I haven't seen the Narnia one and the Muppets one. So I have to watch those. And I don't know what else there might be. At one point in the Narnia one, he yells at one of the actors. Not really yells. One of the actors wants to touch one of the props, and he's just like, I wouldn't. And I was like, oh, he just wants to touch it. Just let him touch it. But give him a pair of white gloves if it's a big deal. Let him touch it. He probably touched it before. So, and speaking of Disney Plus, if you've been listening for a while, I had a whole Disney Plus saga going on in my home that extended to electronics, home theater systems. I mean, the whole bit. It appears to have been corrected. Finally, the Best Buy started sending out the Geek Squads again.
this week, or last week, and I was on the list since my appointments had been canceled due to the coronavirus. And so far it's been a couple of days, but everything seems to be working. So keep our fingers crossed. So, I'm doing something fun in a couple weeks with Mary Jo and Leslie and a few others. You know how Mary Jo and I did Mouse Adventure at the museum, and then we did Mouse Adventure at California Adventure. Because of the coronavirus and everybody sheltering in, Mouse Adventure is doing Mouse Adventure in a box. And I have no idea what it is, but when they had sign up day, Disney must have been running their server, because they had all the same problems we've all come to know and love about Disney. Well, maybe not love, but so they it took a couple of days for them to work it out. And then what they had to do was they had so many people that wanted to do it that they had to have 2 different sessions. So we're in session 2. There was actually a lottery for session 2, and we all applied, everyone in our team, and 2 of us got selected. So it was me and Leslie, and so Leslie signed us all up. So not entirely sure what it is, but I'm looking forward to it. But we all have to be able to have like Dropbox to share files, and we all have to have like Skype or Zoom or something so we can all look at each other and work on it. So it'll be interesting. So I'll let you all know how that goes. So yeah, I think we're doing it on the 14th or something, 12th, 14th, I don't know, one of those days. I probably should know. I'm sure it's in my calendar. And speaking of events on weekends, we want to wish everyone who's celebrating out there a happy Mother's Day this weekend. And for those of you who your mother's no longer with you, we know that's still a special day for you. And we hope that no matter what, your Mother's Day is filled with joyful memories for everybody. So, yeah, and you can join in and watch later on. The Disney Family Sing Along Volume 2 is apparently that evening on Mother's Day. I know, Craig, you'll be singing along.
You know what? I might just. I could, or maybe I'll finally give in and watch the live action Lady and the Tramp. I don't know. I could do anything.
Oh gosh, you haven't watched that yet. You have got to, and tell me what you think.
I don't see myself watching it now. If I didn't watch it within the first month, I don't know if I'm going to.
Yeah. Well, anyway, but you can watch the Disney Family Sing Along Volume 1 on Disney Plus. It's there if you missed it. So I imagine Volume 2 will end up there sooner or later.
Oh, yeah. And, it's probably Volume 3 as well. Volume 4. Volume 1 throwback. I think these are going to be one of those things that's going to be really easy for Disney and ABC to fill in as when they start running out of shows to watch, because, production is shut down on everything. So that and game shows. Well, several times a year, we invite members of our Connecting with Walt family to become a part of the show by submitting questions for me and Craig to answer. And questions are generally about Disney theme parks and resorts, Walt Disney's family, the Walt Disney Company, Imagineering, Disney films, and more. In fact, we got a number of questions about books this time, so that is a new category that we've included this time around. And this week we are going to answer questions in the theme park category, because that is the one we get the most questions about. And then next week we'll answer as many questions as we can in the remaining categories. So we may not get to all your questions today about theme parks that you submitted, because there was a lot. But we'll get to as many as we can. So, Craig, do you want to select the first question? I guess I will. And with this, you can say goodbye to these exact outfits and get used to the next version of them. But I will select the first question. And the first question comes from Tim. And Tim says, in the same vein as great moments with Mr. Lincoln, would you like to see a great moments with Walt Disney attraction with an animatronic Walt using his recorded voice from various interviews he gave?
Well, you probably know it, I think, Craig.
1,000% I do. Yes.
Yeah, no, not an audio animatronic figure. However, Tim, I think that I agree with you. There should be a great moments with Walt Disney. And there sort of is one at the Disney Hollywood studio. You know, sometimes it's abbreviated because they have to have sneak previews of upcoming films. But I would like to see that expanded, and I would like to see something at Disneyland. I still don't understand why we don't have something at Disneyland in this vein with great moments with Walt Disney. I think that, you know, if you go to the Walt Disney Family Museum, you see how well they're able to have Walt tell his own story because there's so many recordings and there's so much video of him. I would like to see them do something creative like that at Disneyland and at Walt Disney World, you know, shorter, but get the people that worked on the Walt Disney Family Museum. There were some great Disney historians that contributed to that, and have something that tells Walt's story, or at least Walt's story associated with the theme parks, because he should have a presence, at least in the Magic Kingdom and at Disneyland.
I'm not even saying it's a bad idea for like 50, 100 years from now. I don't know what my threshold on it would be, but essentially once you get past the generations that truly were not living with him, then maybe it's an idea to explore. But right now, while there's still people who knew him and worked with him, something about that just feels completely awkward. Like, I'd be concerned that Imagineers couldn't do Walt justice right away. And later on, like 100 years from now, if they tried, then I'd say, why not? But, you know, they know him from videos and such, but no one's still alive that actually worked with him and interacted with him. So there can be a little bit more leniency in bringing him to life in that way. You know, so one day it might not be a terrible idea, but I could probably live with it.
Yeah, and also you have to get Walt's family to buy off on it. I think that would be a tough sell for them. Yeah.
They need a lot of time in between. Like a couple generations past, they might not care as much, but if they end up being a protective family like the Tolkiens are with J.R.R. Tolkien's life, then it could become a battle with everything that they do and a lot of unhappiness with the depiction. So if not enough time has passed, it could be very hard to get the whole family actually on board.
Yeah, you're right. Okay. Well, that was a good one to start us off. Okay, I have one, and this is from Chris Reckline. What myth about Walt Disney World is your favorite, you find most fascinating, you feel needs to be debunked, or whatever phrase you want to include here? What myth is at the top of your list?
I don't want to cheat on this one, but the Walt's frozen head myth has just become this classic solely because of how absurd it is. So I'd say that's probably my favorite, even though I hope no one out there has actually ever believed it. I'm sure someone did at some point in time, but it's just, even the concept of it it's so absurd that I love any time it's brought up in the pop culture that has actually sprung from it. So that's definitely my favorite one. And I don't think it needs to be debunked by science or anyone. I think the world's smart enough to know that the frozen head of Walt Disney is not frozen in or around any Disney park.
Yeah, I think this one it's very closely associated with Disneyland. There's always that suspicion he's somehow underneath Pirates of the Caribbean or something, but no, he's not. He's not. Mine is the myth, and this one is associated with Walt Disney World, that Walt Disney personally said, if you can dream it, you can do it. He never said that. Now, that's not to say this wonderful little quote doesn't reflect his ideology or his philosophy, but he just didn't say it. But of course, the quote comes from a classic Epcot Center attraction, Horizons. Of course, that was a trip through the potential amazing futures of the world, from space station colonies to underwater cities. It was hosted by grandmother and grandfather, and it was sort of the successor to Walt Disney's Carousel of Progress, which was one of Walt's very favorite attractions. So then you're asking, well, if Walt didn't say it, who did? Well, Imagineer Tom Fitzgerald wrote that quote specifically for the Horizons attraction at Epcot Center. And he used it in numerous ways. So it was from dialogue in the ride to graphics for the attraction. And I still see that all around. Hallmark, has its line of Disney, items, and that's always on a plaque or something.
Exactly, little statues.
Yeah, but unfortunately, we have to credit Tom Fitzgerald for that rather than Walt.
Yeah, and that's just one of a couple misquotes, and at least one that could kind of sound like Walt. I get more annoyed by butchering a movie quote more than like completely misattributing a quote to a different person. But anyways, it's my turn now, so I'm going to choose a question from Katie. And Katie asked, what is a good first ride at Disneyland for first-time visitors?
Well, for me, I think going on the train. They always say Walt built Disneyland so he could put his train around it. But you get a wonderful view of the park. Of course, so much of Walt is associated with trains. If you've listened to the show for any length of time, there's so many train stories, and he saw trains. They opened up his imagination as traveling to all over the United States and in other countries. He rode trains. He just loved trains, and I just think you have to ride that train around the park. Plus, unlike Walt Disney World's Magic Kingdom, Disneyland's train, it actually is a Grand Circle tour in that you see the park and you see where the different attractions are. You really get your bearings. There are many more stops along the way than at the Magic Kingdom. So it really is a transportation system also at Disneyland. So I would recommend the Disneyland Railroad.
That is a great choice, and I love it. I think for me, I would have to go with Pirates of the Caribbean. I think a lot of people would say it, and there are very obvious reasons why. If they've been to other Disney parks, Disneyland still gives a good wow factor with their pirates. Like I haven't been to Shanghai and seen that version, so I'm leaving that out of this. But from the people I've talked to, they've said that they've either loved it or they don't believe that it should necessarily be classified with the rest of the Pirates rides just because how next level it is. So really, if you're comparing Disneyland's with Walt Disney World's, then it's definitely going to knock your socks off. And in terms of just visiting Disneyland for the first time, I think it also works well too, because it gives you an idea of what makes a Disney park so great and features all of those elements that make Disney attractions great, from the story to the music to the iconic characters. And beyond that, if you know the movies and seen them, but you haven't been to the parks, then at least you get on this ride and you're like, hey, there the movies are, and you have that to look forward to. So I just think it's a well-rounded choice. It's safe, so not exciting, but it's well-rounded, and I think that it's one that works.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's so iconic for a Disney theme park, and especially Disneyland's. And plus, New Orleans Square is just beautiful. And so it's a beautiful setting for it.
And if you're smart enough and get there very early in the day or wait until the very end of the night, then you don't have a bad line at all. And you're not going to be backed up on the bridge and looping around. So it's just a much more pleasant experience.
Yeah, I agree with you. The queue moves very quickly, so which is nice. Yeah. So, and you have to keep in mind the queue for Disneyland's Pirates is almost all outside, whereas the queue for the Magic Kingdoms is completely inside. So don't let the line scare you. So, okay, let me see. What I'm trying to think here. Some of these we've answered on previous shows. So, but okay, this is from Mackenzie Ledley. Craig, what are your favorite Mary Blair touches to Walt Disney World and Disneyland? Why does it seem that Mary's artwork is not for sale? Would love to hear anything about Mary Blair and her Disney connection.
For me, as a Walt Disney World person, it's easy. It has to be the Mary Blair artwork in the contemporary concourse. I would have discovered Mary Blair first, say, on the Disney sing-along songs tape, the one with It's a Small World. Would have been my first real interaction with that ride. But so the paintings in the contemporary would have actually been my second discovery of Mary Blair's work. But I would say at this point, it would be sacrilege if they would try to ever remove those paintings in the concourse. I mean, even if they changed the theme of the entire hotel, I don't see a world in which they could remove them. They're beautiful. They're perfect. And you could just take so much time taking in all of the details. And if you're a true Walt Disney World fan, then chances are you love them and you're staring at them every time you're riding through the contemporary, not looking down at Chef Mickey's or anything else down there. And it's the murals, just they're what sticks out to me most at Walt Disney World. But I'm actually more interested in to hear what you have to say about Disneyland, since there's probably a little bit more to choose from.
Yeah, there is. And so unfortunately, some of it is gone. But Mary Blair did character designs for attractions at Disney theme parks. For me, it's Disneyland's Small World. It's a Small World attraction with that wonderful facade that we have. And of course, all the work that she did inside. She was instrumental in having it, in having it brought over from the 65 World's Fair, in that Walt, told her, I want you to work on this and design it, not only just the interior for the fair, but also the exterior. And she worked with Rolly Crump, on that, as well as Alice Davis. For me, too, besides, of course, the huge mosaic at the Contemporary Hotel's Grand Canyon Concourse, there was a fiesta scene at the Mexico Pavilion at Epcot Center that she had designed also. And as a sort of a tribute, It's a Small World was copied for Walt Disney World, Tokyo Disneyland, Disneyland Paris, and Hong Kong Disneyland. But she, even after Walt passed, she continued to work for the Disney company. She made, in 1967, she made several murals for Disneyland's Tomorrowland. There was a mural for the promenade at Tomorrowland at Disneyland, and two other murals of a similar design were at the entrance to Tomorrowland. I know one remains, although it's damaged and covered up. One, I unfortunately found out its sad end when I was at Disneyland Paris. You have to listen to that show and you'll find out. It just seems horrific to me. But so why her work is not sold, I'm sure some of it has to do with the family and all that, although I do occasionally see sketches, things like that, up for sale, some of her artwork. But I'm sure it has to do with the family and the rights and all that. So
we can even look at Disneyland's It's a Small World, and when they took the characters in there and made them in her style. So I think that's what's most important with Mary Blair's work, is that there's a heap of illustrators and animators out there that have been inspired by her. So as long as that inspiration continues, those Mary Blair touches will continue on in the parks. So they may not be her personal touches, but they're still going to be done in her style, and that's important and can cause her work to live forever. So, but okay, my question now, and I know we weren't going to try to bring a lot of current events into this show, but I feel like this question is interesting from the aspect of where we're currently at with Disney right now. So anyways, Katrina asked, do you think we'll see new non-intellectual property rides in the parks? And I think now's a good time to drive home the probable answer to that question.
I don't see that happening right now. When you have built-in fan base, when you have an attraction that's based on a film that's already really popular, I think that, that right there, that it's going to bring people into the park. Whereas something that is new and inventive and different, it's a bigger gamble, financially for them. And will it have the longevity, as an attraction based on an IP? That's questionable. So I think it will be a very long time before we see a non-IP original attraction in the parks. Plus, they've sunk so much money into other things like Star Wars and Marvel that I think we're going to see a lot more coming from those films before we see anything new and original.
We're living in a world where the parks have lost a ton of money because of the closures. Without income, they can't invest in every single project that they had on the table before, and they have to be very selective about what they're actually going to work on. And they have to look at which projects will bring the biggest dividends, and it's just too hard to justify on an original story when you have no basis for its actual long-term success, where if you base something on a blockbuster movie, you have a pretty good idea of its popularity and its ability to sell merchandise. And of course, merchandise has a big impact of it, especially since it's linked up directly with Disney parks. So, and it's a great way to see the interest there too. So it's a shame. And we've had this question before, and I think we've even answered it kind of before. But I think right now it's even more relevant. And I think any hope of a non-intellectual property attraction is pretty much gone. And I feel like at this point, the only hope we have in a non-intellectual property attraction is if there's a CEO way down the line, and many people past Bob Chapek at this point that grew up with non-intellectual property attractions, something like Expedition Everest, and they say, look, we need to get back to making stories and attractions like this. But until anything like that changes way down the line, I don't think any non-intellectual property attraction has a chance.
Yeah, I agree with you. Absolutely. And it definitely won't happen under Bob Chapek. So, and I think he's going to be around a while. So, anyway. All right. I'm going to grab one that I have the answer to, but Craig, you might know of other stories or want to comment on it. And Don Potter, he wants the backstory of Doritos and Disney. He thinks it'd be a neat talking point, or how some food products can have Disney ties. Well, I did talk about this on my 60 Years of Disneyland series, but I'll run through it really quickly because it's sort of a cool story, and Craig and I are recording on Cinco de Mayo, so it seems appropriate. So shortly after Disneyland opened in 1955, the founder of Frito-Lay got permission from Walt Disney to open a restaurant in Frontierland with sort of a Mexicanish theme. Because remember, this was when Walt couldn't afford to run everything, so he had to have vendors to run a lot of the shops and restaurants. Years later, he would buy all those contracts back and run them himself. Casa de Fritos was the name of this restaurant. And unsurprisingly, it was all about Fritos. And customers got free Fritos with every dish. Fritos were incorporated into many of the dishes. They were dispensed by an automatic vending machine that featured the Frito Kid asking his assistants Klondike to bring up a bag of Fritos from a mine shaft. So I don't know if they mined for Fritos or what went on there. So anyway, Casa de Fritos contracted their tortilla production company to a company called Alex Foods. And they contracted their tortilla production to a company called Alex Foods. And one of the salesmen from Alex Food was making a delivery to Casa de Fritos, and he saw that the restaurant was throwing away all their stale tortillas into the garbage. And so he gave the cook a little tip. He said, fry them and sell them as chips instead of throwing them away. And so Casa de Fritos began making these fried chips. They seasoned them, and they were enormously successful. But Casa de Fritos never reported this menu item to the Frito-Lay company. So a year later, the new vice president of Frito-Lay, Archibald Clark West, he dropped by the restaurant without any warning to see how they're doing. And he saw hundreds of guests enjoying this tasty little treat. And he named them Doritos. And he made a deal with Alex Foods to produce them as a snack. Well, Doritos started to become immensely popular. And so the production of chips was moved to a bigger factory in Tulsa. And throughout his life, though, West was completely committed to Doritos. He even served as a taste tester after he retired from the vice presidency. Now, he said his favorite was plain corn, but he conceded that he liked Cool Ranch as well. And then shortly before he passed, he tasted a cheeseburger-flavored Dorito, and he just spat it out. So... Yeah. At his funeral, his daughter threw Doritos into the grave after him at his request. So the next time you open a bag of Doritos, recall that it was created from the garbage at Disneyland.
You went way in more depth than I could have ever went into. But I think the important takeaway is that next time you go to Taco Bell and order a Doritos Locos taco, you can now say to yourself that you're eating Disneyland history.
And I also talk about other foods in my 60 years of Disneyland series, like churros. How did churros become so closely associated with Disney parks? Get into that in the show. And why does Disney have the foot-long churros and all that, when everywhere else you go, they're little bite-sized ones?
Do you cover why Disneyland churros taste better than Walt Disney World churros?
No, I do not. I don't think I've had them in both parks, to be honest with you. Remember, I had my first churro on air when we were doing our 7 and 7 for the Diz Unplugged.
I completely forgot about that. That was like 2015 or 2016.
I was even in the opening credits for a little while of our Walt Disney World show, eating it for the first time. So I don't think I've had one at Walt Disney World.
They don't taste as good, so don't waste your time. So now I'm going to let you talk a little bit more about history here in a way. Timothy said, with the new Jungle Cruise movie being released soon, which of course now is next year because of everything being shut down. Anyways, Timothy wonders, with the skippers on the ride, do they tell the same jokes? Who wrote the jokes? And has the ride always been portrayed in a comical manner?
Well, good question, Timothy. Actually, it was not originally portrayed in a comical manner at all at Disneyland. It was originally Walt. Adventureland was based on his True Life Adventure series, which they were not exactly documentaries, but they were close, but they told a story. And that's what Adventureland was supposed to do, is tell a story. So the Jungle Cruise, it told the story about the animals that you encountered and the different rivers. There was no humor whatsoever in it. The humor didn't get introduced until Walt hung out in the parks. He liked to listen in at what guests were saying about the attractions, but he waited in line with everybody else to see, because he didn't want the lines too long. Okay, what would Walt say? I think I know what he might say about the crowding of the parks, but anyway, but Walt would stand in lines with a stopwatch, and he would also go on the attractions with a stopwatch, and he did on the Jungle Cruise he got upset when he felt the skippers were piloting those boats a little too quickly through the cruise, because he knew how long it was meant to be, and he got on them about that. But he overheard, there was a woman with her son, and the son said, "Oh, let's go on the Jungle Cruise or the Jungle Boat ride." And she said, "No, we've already been on that." and they moved on. And Walt realized there needed to be changes to the park. So he brought in a few people, including Mark Davis, the animator. And he asked him to take a look at the park because Walt realized attractions needed to change to keep people coming back. And one of the things Mark said was, there are no laughs on some of the attractions in this park. You need humor here. And Walt told Mark, go for it. And so that's when we got a lot of the humorous vignettes, like the Lost Safari, getting the point in the end, and the elephant bathing pool, and a few other scenes were all thanks to Mark. And that's when the script changed. The script was very strict. And, it came from Burbank, that script. And Marty Sklar had something to do with it, and others too. But the skippers had to stick to this script. And it changed over time. It's changed over time. But I know that there are... And the skippers do throw in their own humor. They can also submit one-liners and all of that to be considered for incorporation into the script. Now, it's my understanding that there is the basic script, and then there's one-liners, and that the Jungle Cruise skippers can then choose to add into the basic script so that each cruise doesn't necessarily have to be identical, so that the Jungle Cruise skippers they could decide, okay, I like these one-liners and jokes, and another Jungle Cruise skipper might like some different one-liners and jokes. So he or she will put those into their spiel. So you could get different spiels, but they're all pretty much approved.
Yeah, I know a lot of past skippers, and it's really frowned upon to go off book, but at the same time, just like any comedians out there, they need an audience to be able to hone in on some of the new material. So eventually you do have to practice. And I back then, the ones that I knew, they just hoped that they weren't getting secretly audited, because sometimes you have cast members from other attractions, other areas come in and they actually do audit. I'm not sure if it's a practice that still continues to this day. It was when I worked there, and the people that I knew worked there. So yeah, if they just happened to be going off book when they were being audited, then they could definitely get in trouble for some of those jokes. But that it makes me think of Jingle Cruise, and why I think I like Jingle Cruise so much, especially in those first years, because the first year, they didn't really have a lot to work with, but after that first year, I feel like they really started to explore the jokes, adding in a little bit more, started to hone in on those old jokes as well too. Just keep practicing, working on that material until it's transformed to what it is today, which now I think it's absolutely fantastic. So it's been interesting to see how that procedure has all played out and transformed since it started.
Yeah, I really miss the Jingle Cruise at Disneyland because they did such a good job with it, from the decorations to the skipper's spiel. And I mean, how much could it cost? I don't understand why, that got cut from the budget. And because everybody bemoans it, they all want it back. And it's not like they had to take the attraction down for a week or something like they do with Haunted Mansion, or even longer with It's a Small World, in order to redress it. So, I don't get it.
It's sad. And, it made sense the year that it didn't happen, because they drained Jungle Cruise for Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. But then once the attraction came back, but Jingle Cruise didn't come back for the holidays, it was disappointing, especially because I feel like Disneyland's Jingle Cruise was superior to Walt Disney World.
Yeah. I enjoyed them both, but I thought Disneyland's I thought they did a really good job on that one. Yeah. Okay, I have one. It's my turn, right, or is it yours?
Yes, yours, and we have time for one more question.
Oh, okay, and it's mine. Okay, it better be good. Okay, well, I'm going to quickly answer one because it's a one word answer. Jerry Rusiti, People Mover design, could it be rebuilt and brought back? No. I have it on, Jerry, I'm sorry, because I love the People Mover. Like, I know you must. I have heard it from as high up as I've been able to go. There's no way it's coming back. There are structural issues with it. When they've made changes to attractions, they've blocked some of the track that went through the interior of the building. So it's gone, so it's just a hulk of tracks sitting there. And I'm sure when they finally decide to turn their attention to Tomorrowland at Disneyland, that will be gone. So anyway, okay, how about for this? I'm going to ask you, Craig. I don't really have an answer for this, but Elon Fisher's asked, at this moment or whenever it is being filmed. Okay, Elon must have ESP because we had no idea we were doing video. So Elon, when we asked for questions, so Elon, thumbs up to you. You better buy a lottery ticket. What is your favorite or the best table service restaurant in all of Walt Disney World? And separately, doesn't have to be from the same restaurant. What's your favorite dish in all of Walt Disney World? And those are tough questions.
Yeah, they are tough questions. My favorite dish it's definitely at Coronado Springs at the Three Bridges Bar and Grill that they added in like a year and a half ago or so. But the new additions that, the new addition that they added in before the tower opened up. And over there's a signature burger that's probably my favorite hamburger I've ever had at Walt Disney World. I'd even go as far to say it might be my favorite hamburger I've had anywhere. Easily my favorite one in Orlando. And the first time that Kylie and I ate there, she got the burger, but I ordered a chicken dish, and once I tried hers, I actually made her cut the burger in half, and then I completely ate all of mine and then half of hers as well too. But it's ultimately the reason why I love it. It's just so salty, and it just it awakens my taste buds, and the seasoning on the patty, it just kind of blends with the savoriness of the manchego cheese that they put on there, and it just starts to make my mouth water like crazy, and I just want more and more. And kind of the best way to describe it is it's almost like that same feeling you get when you get movie theater popcorn, and you're like, I just want a little bit, but then once you start getting your taste buds hit by that saltiness and the butter, it's just like you sit down and all of a sudden you're eating an entire large popcorn by yourself, and that's just how it happens. So that's kind of the best equivalent of that hamburger for me. And I could see the argument if some people said it's probably over seasoned, but for me it's perfect. But do you have an answer to the first part of the question, at least, while I try to think of a restaurant?
I don't know, but when I come out for Destination D, you and I have to go and get this burger. One of my favorite dishes. It's actually, there was a burger at I can't think of what restaurant it is. Was it the Park Fair over at Grand Floridian? What's the name of that one? Cafe. Yeah, okay, that's what it is. They had a really good burger there that had lobster on it. And I thought, oh, okay, this doesn't sound appetizing. And then everybody told me it was great. So Carol and I both had it. That was one of the few restaurants Carol and I actually always made a point of returning to because we liked that burger so much. So we were shocked by that. I think I don't know if I have a very favorite restaurant. Carol and I always ate those Chefs de France. And so that probably ended up being our favorite restaurant in Walt Disney World.
That's one of the ones I find myself going to pretty often, but I'm struggling with this. There's lots of places that I love, but since I just talked about my favorite dish, and if you ask me what my favorite restaurant is, I'd probably say it's where my favorite dish is. So you could say that, but It's a complex question. There's days that I'd say I love the plaza, especially when you have that perfect view of Cinderella Castle, and it just is a wonderful experience. But then something like Be Our Guest or California Grill can just be a really romantic experience, and then something like Hoop-Dee-Doo Review, it's not complex food, but the overall experience there is actually just a ton of fun. So I'd also throw in too that my actual favorite restaurant might not even be a restaurant itself, but like a grander thing, like a monorail crawl, where maybe you stop and have like sushi at the Polynesian, and then get something to eat at Grand Floridian Cafe, and then head over to California Grill at night for that cocktail or dessert in the lounge, like right around fireworks. Yeah, you're not going to get a spot there because it's too crazy and insane, because everyone wants to be up there to watch the fireworks. But that's, if you, in an ideal world, that would be how it would happen. I just kind of sample my way around the world.
That sounds good. Yeah. Now, the ultimate dining experience Carol and I did, this was always on our bucket list, and I'm so happy we got to do this before she passed. And we went to Victoria and Albert's. Oh my goodness. I can't imagine who else I would ever go with to this again, because that is such a unique experience, and you go with your special someone to this, I think, and for a special occasion, and oh my gosh, it was fantastic. Our server was incredible, and he just knew just how much to be attentive and how much to stand back, which is an art form in a restaurant of that type. And the food was exquisite. The wine pairings were perfect. It's fabulous. I mean, if you ever can do that, and if you can afford it, because I know not every budget can handle that, and we saved up for it. It's, oh my goodness, it lives up to its reputation.
Dreaming of going there one day.
Yeah, and and a cheddar cheese soup at Les Celliers. I love that. I would go there just to have a big bowl of soup with their pretzel bread and all that. I've made their cheddar cheese soup at home.
It's pretty easy. At first,
yeah. Although it's time consuming and it's not inexpensive with all the different cheeses. And for a while, I was sure I was making a Disney themed meal. Now, I don't know what the occasion was, but it was sort of a fancy meal as for me and Carol. And I thought this soup is going to be a disaster. I mean, because you sort of nurse it along. And suddenly as I don't know, in hour 3 or something of stirring it, it just all came together. It was like magic. I don't know what happened, and it was delicious. I just wish I had pretzel bread to go with it.
Yeah, I've made it once, and my problem with soup is that by the time I finish making it, I just don't really want it anymore, and then I have too much leftovers from what I didn't eat. And at least I'd say with this soup that you can make like a fondue out of it with your pretzel bread.
That's very true. That was good. Okay. Well, that was fun. There were a good list of questions here, and there were a lot of good ones we didn't get to, so we apologize for that. Some actually we have answered on previous shows, but we know some of you might be new listeners, so you're just sort of jumping in right now. A couple were answered in my 60 Years of Disneyland series, or even on Connecting with Walt, like how involved was Walt in the Secret Land purchase in Orlando. We covered that on this show. So if you ever get a chance to binge listen to past episodes of either our Legacy Disneyland show or this show, so a lot of the questions that were submitted will actually get answered. So anyway, but we look forward to doing this again next week, where we'll cover the categories are Walt Disney and the Disney family. We did get a question on Imagineering. There's a question on films, there's several questions on films in the studios. And the Walt Disney Company, there's a number of questions. And I already mentioned books is a new category right now. We got a lot of questions about books. And then there's a miscellaneous in there where things just didn't fit anywhere else. So they fit into that category. So we hope you enjoyed this. We hope you enjoyed this experiment of watching us. Let us know what you thought. Okay, Craig, well, gosh, we had 5 weeks of Mary Jo doing this. And then, of course, you had to fill in when I was gone. But now we're back to we call it an alternate format, but it seems to be our primary format these days. But anyway, we're going to take a look at what's going on May 10th. So, well, for the week of May 10th. So, you all set?
I'll be honest. I'm nervous. I think I got used to the multiple choice there for a little while, but I think I'm ready.
Yeah, well, it's a lot easier for me not having to come up with all those multiple choices that will trick you. But then I always throw in one that you can always just get rid of right away. So anyway, that's what I did when I was a teacher on the multiple choice exams. There was always one that the students would know, okay, it can possibly be that. So anyway, okay, so for May 10th, for the first time since moving to Hollywood, Walt Disney delivers a cartoon without a continuing character on May 10th, 1929. What is the title of this cartoon short?
I'm going to go with it having to be a silly symphony. So narrowing it down, I think it has to be Skeleton Dance.
Absolutely. Yeah, the very first Silly Symphony, the grand experiment. And it marks young Les Clark's debut as an animator. He worked on this with Iwerks. And this will be released in August of 1929 to a wide release. But yeah, this was groundbreaking. And, you know, some theater owners thought, oh, this would be too macabre and it would scare little children and women for some reason. I guess back in those days, women just didn't have the constitution for things like this. And they were always an excuse when Walt tried to pioneer things. Like, you know, Mickey Mouse would scare women because they'd be scared of a giant mouse and all that. But anyway, yeah, so it was Skeleton Dance. And so Walt, again, in true Walt fashion, he had to, like, you know, get an agreement with the theater to show it just so that he could prove that there was an audience for it, and there was. So then it got distributed. So anyway, so very good. You're off to a good start. Okay, May 11th, we'll get a little more contemporary. The 11th Disney princess is officially crowned at Walt Disney World on May 11th, 2013. What is her name?
That would be Merida. I know because I was there for the celebration. It was a nightmare. It was crazy. They all came out on stage, and I got to the park early for it, but I needed probably another hour earlier just to get a decent spot. So I'll never forget that day. And my biggest takeaway from it was get to the places you really want to be at very, very early.
Yeah, because this took place in front of Cinderella Castle, and yeah, all 10 of Merida's fellow royals were in attendance. Although I don't consider all of these people princesses, like like Mulan. I mean, she didn't become royalty. I guess she's Disney royalty, but in the film she didn't really marry a prince.
Yeah, I understand that. That's one of the questions. Like with maybe I'm wrong, but is Pocahontas considered one?
She is. Pocahontas is on the list, but her, I guess, yeah, her father was a chief, so I guess that's how they did. It's a very loose connection, but I'm not going to begrudge them their royal lineage. I mean, because I just rewatched Mulan, and the week that, you know, the live action film should have come out, I watched it on Disney Plus. I love that film, so it's really well done. I could do without Mushu, but anyway. I think it's a good film. So, alrighty. May 12th. Members of the Board of Governors of the Carolwood Pacific Historical Society gather in Disneyland on May 12, 2005 to congratulate a fellow society governor, animator, and Disney legend for receiving the Walter E. Disney Railroad Preservation Award, the highest honor given by the society. What is the name of this Disney legend who received this award?
I think you have me stumped on this one because you said Carolwood Pacific, so I jumped in my brain directly to Ward Kimball, but I think he was gone by that time, so not quite sure.
You're on the right track in that it was a Disney legend who was also into trains in a big way.
My brain is not working, so I'm going to need you to just give me this one.
Okay, Ollie Johnston. Yeah, because he owned the Marie E., which is now owned by John Lasseter. And there's such a touching video of when John Lasseter purchased the Marie E. and he restored it. And I talk about this again in my 60 Years of Disneyland series, or I might have done even a separate segment. I'm not sure. But John Lasseter had to go through all of this because I don't think he was a Disney employee at the time. I don't know if Pixar had been bought yet. I'm not, but I might be wrong. He arranged for the Marie E. to be put on the Disneyland tracks before the park opened. And then Ollie Johnston was invited to the park, and he just thought it was a photo op or he was getting some award or something. They gave him a believable story, but not the real one. And when they had to take him to the Frontierland station because that's the only one that's accessible because Ollie Johnston was in a wheelchair by that time. And when he recognized, it was not in the station. They had it pull into the Frontierland station, but he recognized the whistle before it ever entered the station. And this is on YouTube. It is so touching. I mean, the hardest of hearts would not tear up at this. And then he gets behind the throttle, and John Lasseter tells the whole story. I mean, I've heard him tell the story, how hard it was, because when Ollie bought this thing, he had it like jerry-rigged and all that. So John Lasseter had to get it to a point where it was easily, the throttle could be easily used and all that. And, but it had no brakes. So Ollie Johnston, though, he started that out. He took it for the Grand Circle Tour. And keeping in mind now, Ollie, he was in his final years. And there was a cameraman on the track of when the Marie E. came out of the tunnel coming to the Frontierland station. They wanted that image of it. And if you knew that train had no brakes, and that cameraman standing in front of the train, and there was an older gentleman at its helm, you would think, oh no. And Ollie stopped that thing on a dime. It was amazing. So it was very special. Now I'm trying to be able to, finagle a ride on the Marie E. over at the John Lasseter's winery. So anyway, well, and believe me, I'm working on it. So, anyway, okay, May 13th, which Disneyland Nighttime Spectacular held its first dress rehearsal at a special premiere party for annual pass holders on May 13th, 1997?
1997.
This is when the Walt Disney Company learned the power of the internet.
Oh, normally I'd be struggling with this one, but I believe the answer is Light Magic. And that's because one of my dear friends, Sam Carter, loves to post about this parade. And I think he genuinely loves it, but it keeps it fresh in my brain. So I believe that's it.
Yeah, I've seen his stuff. And yes, it is light magic. It was short-lived. It struggled along until Labor Day 1997, and then it was gone. And yeah, the annual pass holders, well, they had their phones and they started posting how much they disliked it. And Light Magic, again, 60 Years of Disneyland series, we go into great detail on why this was a disaster. This is when you don't you launch something when it's ready, and not because this is the date you said it would be ready, because it was not ready for showtime. But too much advertising had gone out and too many things had been printed and all of that. And it was a disaster. And plus it was coming on the heels of the Main Street Electrical Parade, which was beloved by Disneylanders. And yeah, so they all got on their little phones and talked about how horrible it was. And even when Disneyland fixed all the problems, they just couldn't overcome couldn't overcome the internet.
Still what they're dealing with today. So what's the saying, that history repeats itself all the time?
Yeah, yeah. And, Walt didn't see final Pirates of the Caribbean because he felt it wasn't ready. And so he had them close it down and said, don't, because, and they closed down, the Blue Bayou, because Walt didn't want the restaurant to be open without the attraction, because he felt seeing the boats go by and the whole Bayou experience was all part of the dining experience. And so he told them, don't let them force you to open it before the attraction's ready. That's what he said to the lead Imagineers. And they didn't. And Walt passed away in the meantime. But to Walt, the show was the most important thing. So,
as it should be.
Okay. Well, Craig, May 14th. What filmmaker was born in Modesto, California on May 14th, 1944? Some of his films would become inspirations for Disney theme park attractions.
This is where it'd be great to have multiple choice, because I feel like...
Well, he probably enjoyed Monday a whole lot.
Thank you for that little hint. I'm going to go with George Lucas.
That's right. It's George Lucas. His popular Star Wars and Indiana Jones adventure movies, of course, are the inspiration for so many attractions, and Galaxy's Edge. And he was the executive producer of Captain EO. So can't hold that against him. And, and the animation studio Pixar was first founded as the graphics group, which is 1/3 of the computer division of Lucasfilm. And then, of course, in 2012, Lucas sold the rights to Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Industrial Lights and Magic, and Skywalker Sound to the Walt Disney Company. So I guess now, if Princess Merida had been crowned today, Princess Leia would have been there at Cinderella Castle, right?
I feel like we'll keep princesses animated and change the verbiage to animated princesses. Granted, I think Leia has been animated before, so that could blow up in my face. But anyways, George Lucas fascinates me. I actually have his biography by Brian J. Jones sitting down on my stack of books that I need to read. So one day I'll get around to figuring out why he's such a strange man.
Okay. May 15th. Walt Disney's first silent short to feature Mickey and Minnie Mouse premiered as a sneak preview at a theater on Sunset Boulevard in Los Angeles, California on May 15th, 1928. What is the title of this cartoon short?
Well, if it's the first silent one, then Plain Crazy.
That's right. That's right. It's a parody of the Charles Lindbergh craze that was going on at the time. Cost a whopping $1,772 to make. And it's the very first appearance of Clarabelle the cow. in it, and it's co-directed by Walt Disney and iWorks. iWorks is also given credit as the main animator, but he is assisted by Hugh Harman and Rudolph Ising. This is the last project Harman and Ising worked on because they jumped to a new studio formed by Charles Mintz, which of course he's infamous in Disney history, and then they would go on to leave Mintz's studio to start Warner Brothers and the Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer Animation Studios. Of course, sound would later be added to Plain Crazy, and it officially would be released March 1929, 4 months after Steamboat Willie.
I do enjoy Plain Crazy a lot. I've always been a cheerleader for it, so something about it always attached to my brain, and I've always enjoyed it.
He was he was, I think, at his most mischievous and cheeky was in that film. I mean, using Minnie Mouse's bloomers as a parachute and all kinds of stuff, trying to steal a kiss from her. All the stuff that, we don't think of Mickey as being, quite that bold. But he was in his younger days. Before he grew up and had a mortgage. I don't know. So, okay, and our final question for this week, May 16th. What attraction made its debut at Walt Disney World's Disney-Mgm Studios on May 16th, 1991?
1991. This would be Muppet Vision.
That's right, Muppet Vision 3D. Okay. So, I had to throw a Muppet one in here. It's housed in a 500-plus seat multimedia 3D theater located in a further expansion of the backlot annex area. And I do like Muppet Vision 3D. It'd be fun if they did a newer version of it, but still kept that same theme and that same level of madness and chaos.
Yeah, the hard part is with any good story, it can stick around a long time, but a couple of moments can still take away from it. Like with Muppet Vision, when they break through the wall at the end and you see all the 90 outfits, that kind of takes away. Other things, little minor things like the projection could really need a good upgrade. But I feel like Muppet Vision could still be revived into something that could be great with just a little loving care. As true Muppet fans, we'd chain ourselves to the theater if they ever tried to get rid of it.
I would hate to see that go. I really would, because I think that is one of the perfect venues for the Muppets. It's how they got their start. For most of us, was that original Muppet Show. And so I just think, to me, it's just a continuation of that.
If they got rid of that show at that point, they just need to sell the Muppets back to Jim Henson and be done with it once and for all. Just let it go.
Yeah, because I don't know why Disney just can't wrap their heads around what to do with the Muppets.
You need someone in charge of it who cares about it, and hopefully that person comes along sometime and there is a happy ending.
I hope so. I hope they find a proper space and that they're given their proper due and all that. And I love that TV series that I watched on Disney Plus, and how sad that it ends. That series just ends so abruptly with them worried about being canceled. I thought, did the writers know this?
So much Muppet work is done with blue screen. I wish they could just be doing some Muppet stuff at home. Send the Muppets to the puppeteers and let them make anything.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Absolutely. So, yeah. Why didn't they should be doing shorts like those fellows are doing them for Olaf right now. Those little 30-second shorts that are so entertaining. And how long do you think it took Josh Gad to record all those? A minute and a half?
At least we got the one video with Kermit singing Rainbow Connection, so hopefully that did well enough and got shared around enough that it's just the start of a lot more.
I hope so. I really hope so. Well, Craig, you did really well. This was a long history segment as we filled in and all that. That was fun. You did a great job this week, though. Good. You're up on your history. Oh, well, I try to. I think I know your expertise, but anyway, I like to mix it up. Okay, well, Craig, this was fun. I hope our listeners enjoyed being viewers. And now I'm assuming there will be a video and an audio version of this.
Oh yeah, of course. We can't ever abandon audio, considering this is it's an audio podcast primarily, and we don't want to force any of our audio listeners to have to watch a video and when they've spent over 100 episodes now being able to listen to us. But hopefully, if anything, this drives new audience to the audio versions that didn't know we were out there before by having this on YouTube. And because we haven't had this on YouTube except since way back when we used to post the audio shows, but it would just be with like the Connecting with Walt logo and no visuals at all. So our first real true video episode.
Yeah. So if you are new because you found us on YouTube, Craig and I are here just about every week. If you are a Disney fan of any aspect of Walt Disney, the Imagineers, the theme parks, the films, just the stories, I mean, anything about Disney, then this is the show for you. So because we tell you how it all happened and give you a lot of behind the scenes stories and all that. So, Craig, until next time, where can our listeners connect with you on the Diz Unplugged network of shows?
As always, you can find me on the various shows I'm on, as well as Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Teleclaster. What about you, Michael?
Well, you can send me messages at michael@wdwinfo.com. On Twitter, I'm at mbowling121. Facebook, I'm Michael Bowling. Instagram, I'm Michael Bowling the Diz. And you could connect with me and Craig on Twitter at our Connecting with Walt page at Connecting Walt. All right. And Craig, thank you for all the extra work in putting together this like, I feel like it's a double edition, video as well as audio. So if you would like to listen to more shows on the history of Walt Disney, his studio, his Imagineers, and Disneyland, check out our Disneyland podcast archives for my Disney history episodes at DizUnplugged.com, and look for past episodes of Connecting with Walt on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, where you can subscribe to our show and leave some positive reviews and ratings when possible. So thank you for making us a part of your day. And remember, I only hope that we don't lose sight of one thing, that it was all started by a man, Walt Disney, and his brother Roy.